Thank you, William. I will take this off, but I'm just modeling it for you to show off the really nice farm masks that Lajana made for everybody. And thank you, Shanti, for making them for the community and for others as well. It's a fabulous thing to do, and it's a very good thing to do. I heard rumors to the effect that Lajana somehow infused cookie odor in her masks. I don't know how she did that, but I think it's a brilliant marketing idea that I'll put out there for anybody that wants to do that to make masks more acceptable to people. So here we go. Hello. It's really fun coming into service today and seeing everybody on staff and the farm crew all in masks. I mean, it's a little surreal. It's kind of like a hospital. You know, Zach said I look kind of like a surgeon with mine on. But this is divine surgery, what we're going through right now. I'm just going to read a little bit of whispers here from Master. I want to pour the scent of gratefulness at thy feet. The doomsday clouds of inevitably tragic events thundered and poured down sheets of suffering on my life. My courage almost drowned in fear as a million difficulties rose up to destroy me. Only by clinging fast to thee did I survive. Now, when the cannons of uncertainty boom before me, and the shells of calumny, persecution, and fierce opposition fall rain-like around me, I am ever protected in the impregnable fortress of thy love. I am so grateful to thee. When the light of good fortune dawns again, as it must always, following every hard night of struggles, it is easy to smile welcomely at the pleasing sunrise of thy grace. During dark nights of misfortune, however, I find it even sweeter now to offer thee the flowers of my appreciation for being always there protecting me. I offer all my gratitude at thy feet of deep inner communion. Receive me, my eternal beloved, in sacred silence. So this is what the masters are trying to tell us by modeling, just like we are with our masks, showing everybody the best way to do it, to get through whatever's happening at that time in life. The different masters come at different times to infuse good advice to that particular crowd of disciples, of people on the planet at that particular level of consciousness. And so here we are right now between Kali Yuga and Dwapara Yuga. Those of you that don't understand yugas, just think of it as the dark ages kind of rising up in energy and consciousness into a more active, energetic, aware state. Not the highest potential on the planet, that comes way later. But right now we're kind of sort of in the teenage stage, if you think of our planetary conscious evolution as sort of a life cycle. Sort of in the teenage stage. We've gone through childhood, now we're just beginning to wake up, hormones are bouncing all over the place, and we have energy. So that's where we are on the planet right now. And it may not look like we kind of think it will, because our tendency out of habit is just to want to be comfortable. You know, I mean, get to be a teenager, and sometimes there's that stage where, oh, I don't want to go through these changes. They're kind of scary and unfamiliar. And I kind of liked being a kid when everybody took care of me and it was all predictable. But God has a way of just pushing us forward. And the trick here, as all the masters say, is to say yes. Yes. I love the way William exemplifies that so much in his life and in his blog posts and such, is just willingness, saying yes to life. And yes, a promo, the Living Discipleship Program, is a great way to get into that feeling. So the next time that rolls around again, when we're able to do that, jump into that. Yogananda also said, I am constantly surrounded by the immortal currents of his omnipresence, and no disease germs can harm me. If they attack me, they will be electrocuted by his overcoming power. He said that in 1933. I know technically those scientists will say, okay, germs are different than viruses, but still the principle applies. Electrocute them by overcoming power of God. That overcoming power of God is in us by saying yes, by cooperating with what God and the masters are trying to help us with, to help us learn. And what is that? It's to get over the inertia of the familiar, the comfortable, I might even say the lazy. I do fall into this sometimes. I think we all might from time to time. The challenge is not to get stressed out by being busy, 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 as our minds are afraid of sometimes, but just to say yes to the energy that God is flowing through us and presenting to us in every opportunity that comes to us. And that includes the current virus opportunity that's happening on the planet. Everything that happens is a perfect balance. I'll read another quote. I have a lot of quotes, so I'll pepper them into the talk here. Asha said, "The attitudes we hold will become the world we live in." The attitudes we hold will become the world we live in. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that the attitudes that, maybe not we personally, but the planet in general at this stage of Kali Yuga trying to bumpily make its way into early Dwapara Yuga, it's thinking of me, the way kids do. You know, I want this, I don't care about your needs. And we're just barely beginning as a planet to be aware of other people's needs and other people's realities. Now, I don't know about you, but if you step back from it all, step back from the personal life story and the kind of, here we are in Washington that used to be the epicenter in America, now it's shifted, but still we have that experience. You know, you get a little fearful of what could happen and then what neighbors might and what delivery people might. You can get swept up with fear a little bit. The thing is to realize the bigger picture, step back from it a little bit, take a God's eye view. How does this look to God? How does this look to Divine Mother? How does this look to He who created all this? As Ananda Ma said, don't you think that He who created all this knows somehow to take care of us and will? So what is there to worry about? So from a God's eye point of view, I don't know, it seems to me an absolutely brilliant way, to bring the planet together. That's what we need to do to get from Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages, when everybody was separate and thinking of all their own world and it was all fixed and solid. And now we're trying to transition somehow. You know, when we transition from childhood to teenage, hormones help a lot with that. Suddenly the body changes and the voice cracks if you're a guy, and weird things start happening. But they're all part of the story. They're all part of helping us become who we're meant to be. So the virus on the planet right now is helping us who we're meant to be. Now, it's a little bit of a baseball bat approach, but we need that sometimes. If we're a little stubborn, if we're a little stuck in our habits, our parents, our loving parents, our teachers, our friends who really care about us, our Divine Mother, Divine Father, sometimes they have to give us a little whack to kind of wake us out of that. And I think as a planet, that's what we're meriting right now, is just a wake-up call. But it's for our good. It's saying to us, this is what we really want. I mean, haven't you felt that in life? You know, we're kind of cruising along. We're pretty comfortable here in America, generally speaking. But there's this part of our soul that says, there's so much more potential as a planet, as a people. How do we get there from here? And, you know, how would you do it? Would you do it by an alien invasion? That's maybe one way, or, you know, asteroids striking the Earth, or some major outward cataclysm like Yogananda kept referring to all during his life, so strongly that Swami Kriyananda kept trying to impress people what an impression that made on him, and to take it seriously. And all of a sudden, here we are, something completely unexpected, not an alien invasion. I don't think. Master said that sometimes germs can be invasions from other lower planets coming to the Earth. Well, could be, I don't know. But the point is, what's the result? The result is that suddenly, instantly, magically, amazingly, the whole planet is tuned into the same reality. And everybody's getting a chance to react in their own particular way, with their own particular consciousness, and that's the opportunity. And that's what the Masters are here to tell us. I'll tie this back to Jesus, which is the story today, Palm Sunday. Incredible story. It's kind of old and distant to our historic minds, so sometimes these stories and these words and, you know, these phrases that are out of the Bibles that have been translated, they can get a little, you know, like, is that what's the whole point of it? But think of Jesus, think of Yogananda, think of all the great masters as trying to tell us the same thing. So the historical scene then is, you know, this amazing person has been around for a few years, just Just being in his presence. I mean, imagine, we think about what would it be like being with Yogananda. Swami Kriyananda says it was actually hard because he had so much energy, so much divine vitality, so much light that we shy away from that sometimes. We're a little afraid to be in that kind of presence. Isn't it so? I mean, we'd be great, we really would like it, but when it comes down to it, could we take it? As Yogananda said to Dr. Lewis, when Dr. Lewis was trying to corner him to give him samadhi, finally said, if I gave it to you, could you take it? Dr. Lewis said, no, sir. He was being honest. But we know we want it. We know we want that same state of amazing divine consciousness that those people we are so attracted to. Just think of Jesus walking along and saying to somebody, a former disciple, obviously, but in this life, walking along, saying, follow me. No question. Drop everything you're doing. This is what I want. Your soul knows it. And we know what we want inside, personally and as a planet. And so this is God's way of saying, follow me. So how do we respond to that? Well, what Jesus was saying to people all along was, I'm here to bring you an example, a modeling, to show you how to live. Yogananda did too. And then we have a choice of doing the best we can with that. And it's unique, it's individual. Sometimes I compare myself to others that I admire hugely. I really wish I could be like them. But God is singing an individual song through us. So the question is, the art of it, the art of spirituality, is how do we express that same level of enthusiasm, that same saying yes to life, and yet be receptive enough to how God is expressing through us in our particular way. That doesn't mean an excuse for hanging back or being lazy, It just means, okay, God, here we are. We're in an orchestra, we're in a choir. Some people sing soprano, some people sing bass, some are talented on musical instruments, some are talented with other ways. How is God expressing through me? Now, maybe we've always had that sense of how God wants to express through us. Maybe we've been lucky enough to latch onto that and begin to express it. I think of Zach and Haley, for example, and their magnetism at the farm. But what's our particular way that God's expressing? And if we've been holding back on that, don't. This is a magical opportunity to do what our souls know we need to do. And what a riper opportunity than this, I can't conceive. We're at this perfect transition. We've had this whole series of masters come with their example, their modeling. And then Swami Kriyananda comes to us, and fortunately, it tells and explains a lot of things to us and gives us incredible music and book after book after book and talks that have been videoed. Amazing. A lifetime's worth of inspiration. How do we say yes to everything that these great souls are trying to model and give to us right now? So, a few other quotes. Karma is best worked out by meeting life's tests cheerfully and courageously. Don't try to avoid life's tests, but rise above them by dwelling in God's joy within. It's by Yogananda. That's what Jesus was trying to say too. It was Kali Yuga then, getting worse and worse. He said to his disciples, I'm not going to be around long, and things are going to get pretty bad. So what attitude are you going to have? You going to be fearful? Run away? But they all knew the experience they had of God's consciousness inside was more real than any of that outward up and downs that the world gives us. That's what Jesus was trying to tell us. That's what Yogananda is trying to tell us. Kriyananda. That this world is so real, and it's not that it shouldn't be, but from their state of divine consciousness, that's the Son of God as opposed to the Son of Man. It wasn't the person or the personality, it was the divine consciousness expressing within that Jesus was saying, you have this. It's within all of you. Don't just look to me and say, oh wow, you're so great. But God, through me, I've done the work over many lives to realize that God consciousness, and it's so much more real, so much more blissful, just so much more familiar to the soul than any outward dream that we experience. I'm awake. That story of the Buddha that I won't be able to quote perfectly, but after he had his first experience of enlightenment, or shortly after, he came across some people, and they saw that same light that people saw in Jesus and saw in Yogananda, and they said, "What is it about you? There's something different. Are you a god?" And he said, "No." "Are you a demon?" "No." And they kept asking various options, and he kept saying no. And they said, "Well, what are you?" And he said, "I'm awake." That's the answer. It's not anything outward. It's not any form. It's not the container. It's the content. And Jesus and Yogananda and all the great masters are trying to help waken us up to that. So how do we do that? One time, Jyotish and Devi were with Swami Kriyananda having breakfast. And, they have a lot of responsibilities, being in charge of Ananda worldwide. I'm appreciating Reeman and Padma too, just all the years they spent with Swami. And it was not easy, I'm sure, to say yes to life all the time with all the opportunities that he presented. But this is modeling of what it's like when you hang in there in spite of all the, things that you go through. Your brain goes through, your emotions go through, but you know where the pole star is. You know where the best part of you, the best, what is it that, valor, what's the better side of valor? Out there what I'm trying to say. Anyway, discretion is the better part of valor. Okay, well that didn't really apply to what I was trying to say here, but the idea, knowing what kind of energy is the best to put out, may not be easy to take that step forward. But you see the example in people that have been around for a long time of what it looks like after a while. And all they're trying to say is, this works. It may not always be easy in the middle of it, but when you go through it, you learn the lesson. You learn what Yogananda, what Jesus, what Swami Kriyananda have been trying to teach us by giving us opportunities to learn that lesson from within, by trying it on, by doing it ourselves and saying, oh, wow, okay, that, at first that was a little scary. It involved putting out some energy. But what I learned was that my consciousness is wider. I have more ability now. I'm stronger. I see more. I'm more mature. I'm able to help others more. More light is pouring through me. I'm more awake. So by saying yes to life, we have that experience. Okay, I'm going to just totally step aside and do a couple other little humorous things that are just for fun. Thinking of Dr. Peter down at Ananda Village. He used to say that in medical school sometimes, where things were pretty challenging, just all the stuff they went through, hours and hours and challenges and, people coming in with all kinds of ailments. So the interns would have this kind of reassuring saying that, well, all bleeding stops eventually. So a little bit of dark humor, but sort of, you got to have a little humor sometimes to get you through. And we are a resilient species, and that's a really noble quality about people, is that in spite of the darkest circumstances, and we've had some pretty dark ones as a planet, over the years, over the decades, we manage somehow to find humor in it. And that is a reminder of a higher truth. Because what is God? God is ever new joy. So whenever we get kind of sucked into, feeling a little nervous or self-focused or worried, worry is a really easy thing to get sucked into right now. Just take a breath, step back, look up, look at it like God would, and realize, okay, like a loving parent would. I know this is challenging right now. It's your first day of school. You're all scared about all these people and what they think of you and stuff. And will you survive? Will you live? You'll make it through. We will make it through this particular thing. My concern is we're having to put out such good energy now in all of our coronavirus education and discipline and good habits that once it's passed, what's going to happen? Are we just going to kind of settle back into the familiar habits and, party because the fears are over for the time being or whatever? We have an opportunity here to take what we're learning about energy, about putting out good energy, and about sharing with others and about connecting with others and all the Zoom conferences that we're doing and such, the satsangs we're having, and keep that going. That's Kali going into Dwapara. We're learning how to become awake, how to expand our reality, how to connect with others, how to share more, how to help others learn a little more happiness. Okay, the other joke was, this is an old cartoon, The Far Side, for those of you that remember that. And it's a dinosaur convention. So there's the head dinosaur up on the podium, just like this, on stage. And he's saying, "The picture's pretty bleak, gentlemen. The world's climates are changing. The mammals are taking over. And we all have a brain about the size of a walnut." That's it. Anyway, sometimes I can feel like that a little bit, but the masters are here to reassure us, no, we have a bigger advantage than that. It's actually not that our time is phasing out. But even then, you got to think, the enlightened dinosaurs would say, oh, well, we've had a good run. It's our time. Now it's time for somebody else to come along and take over. How can I support them in doing that? I find this aging body, I was looking through some photo albums a while ago with Manisha, and it's like, wow, there was this relatively handsome dude not too long ago, and what happened, But it's just, that's what life does. And so to be able to just take that elegantly and gracefully and say, okay, here's the conveyor belt, and at a certain point, you're just going to drop off, and the others are going to come along. Or the escalator, what happens when the stairs go down at the bottom? Okay, if you're on the other side if you're an escalator repair person, you can see that they come up the other side, and then they come back again. So it's just recycling, upcycling, hopefully. But the thing is to have a positive, cheerful attitude. That's saying yes to life. That's being enthusiastic under all circumstances. That's the challenge the coronavirus is bringing us. It isn't to be cavalier or, naive, or to say, oh, this doesn't affect me. It does, and we have to be practical and do all the appropriate things and model what to do. Wear masks when we're going outside and all those sanitary proper things. But also to have the awareness in the midst of it all, and this back to Palm Sunday again, this is what Jesus had. He had that awareness of God's reality as being stronger, more real, and more lasting than any changes that are always going to come and go, always. Those who know history and look at all the viruses and wars and pandemics, holocausts, all the things that have happened, asteroids, planet-destroying events, it's just one damn thing after another, as a Divine Mother voice said to Asha once. That's the nature of outward reality. That's duality for you. That's the world that God created out there. But Jesus came along, Yogananda came along to say, hey, yogis of all races, of all times, have found that by turning inside, by getting back to the source of it all, you find the bliss that's eternal, that created all of it, ever new joy. I think I talked about Jyotish and Devi having breakfast with Swami and didn't complete that thought. So I will now. So they were, kind of a little whining about, not really whining, but they were overwhelmed with the responsibilities they were feeling because there was a lot going on. And so they were kind of talking to Swami and just saying, gosh, I'm not quite sure how to handle this, and it's challenging. And Swami just, put down his fork and said, the purpose of the spiritual life is to overcome the ego. This is accomplished in two ways: by longer, deeper meditations, and by seeing God as the doer in everything. Then he picked up his fork again and began finishing his eggs. So that was a little bit, Jyotish and Devi repeat that often, but I'll leave that as our sign-off here, which is that the whole purpose of life, of the spiritual path, is to overcome the ego. Now, what's the ego? It's just the limited sense of self. That I'm this personality that's going to die, that's ever changing, that's going to pass on, and I'm separate from you, and I have to worry about you and compete with you and be afraid of you. That's a delusion. This is God's dream. We are all God's expressions. We are all connected. The purpose of the spiritual life is to overcome the ego And this is accomplished in two ways: by longer, deeper meditations, and by seeing God as the doer in everything. So I want to just remind us all, I mean, you know, all you great souls that are watching this are already aware of all this stuff, but take this as an opportunity. How perfect is this to have more time on your hands to meditate at home, if you do? I mean, a lot of people are still busy working, doing their normal life. But regardless, whether you're in a position where you're sheltering at home, or whether you're still as busy as you ever were, maybe even more busy, take it as the divine opportunity to have longer, deeper meditations. Longer, deeper meditations, which is simply a way of saying, make God a priority in your life. Make spiritual realization, make enthusiasm for the divine search, which is the purpose that Jesus, Yogananda, Swami Kriyananda, all the great souls that we know, this is what they're trying to remind us. Take the time to meditate deeply and realize for yourself that truth, that reality, that makes you fearless. You have that sense of reality and you realize it's just all changing out there. It's just a dream. And you're not afraid to be in the dream. You're happy to be in the dream. And you're happy to play with others. And you're happy to show them how they can be happy too. That's the whole dance of it. That's the whole point of it. And then the other side is seeing God as the doer in everything. Don't ever think that any circumstance that comes our way, COVID virus or people around us that are challenging, or our own thoughts, our own fears, our own habits, whatever it is, don't think that any of that is not God being the doer, acting through it, giving us a divine opportunity. There is such love on the planet in everything that comes our way. St. John Vianney, you know that quote, that if you knew how much God loves you, you would die for joy. Well, let's not die at the moment unless God wants us to, but let's just express that joy in every way we can. Express that divine vitality, everything that the masters have been trying to infuse us with. Energization is the other thing, of course, that I didn't mention, but just feeling energy, learning how to work with energy, that's the whole point. Yogananda gave that to us. Is not that we just do these physical things outwardly, but that we understand energy. And that's the yuga that we're in right now. That's the appropriate thing for us to be doing. So energization, long meditations, that's the end of my pitch. Okay? Go out and do it. Thanks.